Oh, lion dear, could I not make you happy with a lovely steak? Could I entice you from your lair with rabbit pie or roasted hare? The lion smiled and shook his head. He came up very close and said, "The meat I am about to chew is neither steak nor chops. It's you."
I had no feeling at all of wanting to be a writer. I don't know any writer, really, who has set out to become a writer. I've lived here for over 40 years, ever since the war ended. And in those early days, I got to know a chap who we became close friends, called Claude. And he was a countryman who knew all about poaching. He taught me two things: poaching and racing greyhounds at the flapping tracks, the unlicensed tracks around here. And we used to go out in the woods poaching. There's a lot of pheasants bred by the rich men around here and put down in the woods, and they're flooded with them, waiting all to be shot down, you know, when they come flapping out in October. And so we thought we'd have one. It was really for the fun of it, actually. And we never caught one. And one day, a lot later, I was thinking, musing around, I thought, wonder if I could do a children's book on that, because it would be fun.
Danny, the champion of the world. We crawled on, and then at last we were kneeling safely behind a big clump of bushes right on the edge of the clearing. It was a fantastic sight, a poacher's dream come true. And how close they were. Some of them were not 10 paces from where we knelt. The hens were plump and creamy brown. They were so fat, their breast feathers almost brushed the ground as they walked. The cocks were slim and elegant, with long tails and brilliant red patches around the eyes like scarlet spectacles. I glanced at my father. His face was transfixed in ecstasy. The mouth was slightly open, and the eyes were sparkling bright as they stared at the pheasants. "There's a keeper," he said softly. I froze. At first I didn't even dare to look. "Over there," my father whispered. I mustn't move, I told myself, not even my head. "Look carefully," my father whispered, "over the other side, by that big tree." Slowly, I swiveled my eyeballs in the direction he indicated. Then I saw him. "Dad," I whispered. "Don't move now, Danny. Stay well down." "Yes, but Dad." "It's all right. He can't see us." We crouched close to the ground, watching the keeper.
There is a world of difference between just being able to write good sentences and being a professional writer who can write a scene so that it comes alive and people love to read it. People think that it's all inspiration. It's not, it's all perspiration, you know, and judgment. And you're never satisfied with what you do. About every page you write is perhaps thrown away 3 or 4 times. There's a place outside my little work hut where the white wall, brick wall, is blackened, where the bonfire takes place about every week. And I have a wastepaper basket beside me which is 3 to 4 foot high, and that gets filled. There's a tremendous lot of work involved at the desk, working it out, seeing which way to go, writing the first page and rewriting it about 10 times. And while you're rewriting that first page, the rest of it is subconsciously beginning to build in your mind, bit by bit.
The giraffe and the Pele and me. I stood there enthralled. Then I heard the giraffe saying to the pelican in the next window, "Pele, my dear, be so good as to fly down and bring that small person up here to talk to us." At once the pelican spread his huge white wings and flew down onto the road beside me. "Hop in," he said, opening his enormous beak. I stared at the great orange beak and backed away. "Go on," the monkey shouted from up in the window. "The pilly isn't going to swallow you. Climb in." I said to the pelican, "I'll only get in if you promise not to shut your beak once I'm inside." "You have nothing to fear," cried the pelican. "And let me tell you why. I have a very special beak. A special beak have I. You'll never see a beak so fine. I don't care where you go. There's magic in this beak of mine. Hop in, and don't say no."
If you can find a good plot, that's the first step in writing a good story, either for a story, short story, or for a book. It's the same thing, especially for a children's book. You have to have a strong plot. And then you've got to embroider it and enlarge it, and it's got to be something fairly crazy. And then the other vital ingredient is humor, laughs. You've simply got to have them. It is the only great children's book I know of with no laughs at all is The Secret Garden. It doesn't have any. And I don't know how she got away with it, but she has, which is masterly. Mystery has done it, you see. But laughs is the next one. A great plot, laughs, lots of excitement and wondering what's going to happen. You've got to make them turn over the next page, or beg the teacher or the parent to go on reading. You've got to. I think the BFG is a bit of a favourite character of mine, yes, because he's kind. And people think I only write about beastly things, but no, he's very kind.
The BFG flung open a massive cupboard and took out the weirdest-looking thing Sophie had ever seen. It was about half as long again as an ordinary man, but was much thicker. It was as thick around its girth as a perambulator. It was black, with white stripes along its length, and it was covered all over with coarse knobbles. "Here is the repulsant snozcumber," cried the BFG, waving it about.
I got the BFG and the little girl, but it wasn't very exciting. There was something missing in it, and I kept looking at it and saying, "Well, yes, it's all right," but... And then suddenly I got the idea of him talking funny. And that did it. That excited me quite a lot. And then I had masses of fun with that all the way through, you see.
"I squoggle it, I mispise it, I dispunge it. But because I is refusing to gobble up human beings like the other giants, I must spend my life guzzling up icky-poo snozcumbers instead. If I don't, I will be nothing but skin and groans." "You mean skin and bones?" Sophie said. "I know it is bones," the BFG said. "But please understand that I cannot be helping it if I sometimes is saying things a little squiggly. I is trying my very best all the time."
I'd just written the BFG, Giants, and I thought, well, the other great mythology thing in children's folklore and literature is witches. There's giants and witches, and that's about it. So I thought I've got to try to do one.
The Grand High Witch took a quick step forward, and when she spoke again, it was in a voice that made my blood run cold. "A stupid witch who answers back must burn till her bones are black," she screamed. "No, no," begged the witch in the front row. The Grand High Witch went on. "A foolish witch without a brain must sizzle in the fiery flame." "Save me," cried the wretched witch in the front row. The Grand High Witch took no notice of her. She spoke again. "An idiotic witch like you must roast upon the barbecue." "Forgive me, oh, your grandness," cried the miserable culprit. "I didn't mean it." But the Grand High Witch continued with her terrible recital. "A witch who dares to say I'm wrong will not be with us very long." A moment later, a stream of sparks that looked like tiny white-hot metal filings came shooting out of the Grand High Witch's eyes, and flew straight towards the one who had dared to speak.
You literally start from nowhere, except that witches can do nasty things. And no one believes in them, so you've got to set out to make the child believe, or pretend they're believing that it's true. And then you make it up. That's all. I think the last little girl, Matilda, is a bit of a favorite of mine, too. Because the children are rooting for the children in the story all the time. And the more revenge or the more winning they can do, the better. Especially at the end, when the worst person in the book is done in by a child, outwitted by a child. That's splendid, because each reader visualizes themselves in the shoes of that child.
Miss Trunchbull had now reached the victim and stood towering over her. "I want those filthy pigtails off before you come back to school tomorrow," she barked. "Chop 'em off and throw 'em in the dustbin, you understand?" Amanda, paralyzed with fright, managed to stutter, "My mummy likes them. She plats them for me every morning."
Children are surrounded by adult giants from the age of 0 to 10 who are always ordering them around, and they actually don't like them subconsciously. I mean, they're the enemy, both the parents and the teachers. So now and again, if you take the mickey out of the parents and a teacher or two, they love it. You wouldn't think, you see, that you could write a story about parents or even a head teacher where the children would be clapping wildly on your side. But they do, because they are the enemy. You have to have nice ones as well. You have a lovely one. They don't say all teachers are horrid. And they know that I'm not saying any teachers are horrid in that book. We're getting laughs, actually. And they know it's fantasy.
"Your mummy is a twit," the Trunchbull bellowed. She pointed a finger the size of a salami at the child's head and shouted, "You look like a rat with a tail coming out of its head." "My mummy thinks I look lovely, Mr. Trunchbull," Amanda stuttered, shaking like a blancmange. "I don't give a tinker's toot what your mummy thinks," the Trunchbull yelled. And with that, she lunged forward and grabbed hold of Amanda's pigtails in her right fist and lifted the girl clear off the ground. Then she started swinging her round and round her head, faster and faster, and Amanda was screaming blue murder, and the Trunchbull was yelling, "I'll give you pigtails, you little rat." "Shades of the Olympics," Hortensia murmured. "She's getting up speed now, just like she does with the hammer. 10 to 1, she's going to throw her." And now the Trunchbull was leaning back against the weight of the whirling girl and pivoting expertly on her toes, spinning round and round. And soon Amanda Thripp was travelling so fast she became a blur. And suddenly, with a mighty grunt, the Trunchbull let go of the pigtails, and Amanda went sailing like a rocket, right over the wire fence of the playground and high up into the sky.
I just tried to think of the worst thing she could possibly do to children. You've got to have a villain or a villainess. You've got to have someone you can do down, I think. I don't think there's any book written without a villain somewhere, adult or children's. If you build them up as being nasty enough first, then you can squish them. You can't squish nice people. The beauty of it in the children's fantasy, you can do what you like and say what you like, because the children's subconscious, all the time they're reading, although they're frightened, they know at heart that it doesn't happen.